Welcome to Be Undaunted. This is the podcast that helps you lead stronger, elevate your impact, and live with more energy.
I'm George Dong, former Navy fighter pilot, Blue Angels flight leader, and corporate executive.
And I'm Tara Collingwood, performance dietitian to Olympians, CEOs, and everyday people that are just under pressure. You're ready to grow, to strengthen your leadership, and to reclaim your energy.
If you want to feel more intentional, more capable, and yes, more undaunted, you're in the right place.
Welcome. This is episode 1 of Be Undaunted. Woo! George, I am so excited. We've been talking about doing this podcast for a while, and here we are. I can't believe it.
I know. Boy, maybe there'll be one or two people listening, but here we go.
Just so you all know, we are coming from two different coasts of the USA. I am residing here in sunny Florida.
And I'm out in the central coast of California.
All right. So I'm sure the question on everyone's mind as they're joining us for this podcast is, what in the heck does Be Undaunted really mean? So George, fill us in.
We picked on that because, frankly, observing life today is, it's chaotic, it's disruptive, it's complex, and I don't know about you, Tara, but I'm exhausted.
Well, we're going to I can't admit that I'm exhausted because we're supposed to be teaching people how not to be exhausted. But I think that's a good point. We're human too, and we're not perfect. So the things we're telling you, we've learned through a lot of experience and working with a lot of clients, right?
That's right. And so in this environment, we want to help share some things that we've learned. And frankly, we need folks, if we're going to thrive, we're going to have to be able to step up and lead even in this environment.
Absolutely. Okay. So some people think that undaunted might mean you have to be completely fearless, or maybe even reckless or gritty, or I can't break, I'm unbreakable, I'm this force to be reckoned with. But when we think about undaunted leaders, or just undaunted people being more undaunted, we all feel fear. Just like we said, you and I, we're not perfect at this. I feel fear all the time. I feel pressure. I feel uncertainty. But what it is acting anyway, not letting that fear and uncertainty get to you and saying, you know what, I'm going to rely on my intention. I'm going to rely on my values. I'm going to rely on my physical energy. And, that's what I am going to talk about the most, is the physical body, nutrition, exercise, sleep, recovery, movement, like making sure that that physical body is connecting to the rest of how you show up in your life. So there is no such thing as sort of waiting for everything to be perfect, to be the best person or the best leader that I want to be. We have to just sort of go with intention and be undaunted.
Yeah, that's a great comment. Being undaunted doesn't mean that you're fearless or that you're foolish, being reckless. It's about clarity and it's about control.
So when you think about some of the people that have had maybe the biggest impact in your life, George, and of course our listeners, think about some of those people that you can think of immediately that in person, not just people we see on TV or Mother Teresa or any of that stuff, which great people. But, when I think of people that I know in person, how many of them necessarily had an impressive title? Maybe, maybe not. How many of them just really made you feel special? And those special people show up with trust, with clarity, with energy, with connection. And that's really what it's all about, right?
Yeah, it sure is. And all the high performance teams I've been on in the Navy, at Top Gun, Blue Angels, flying off aircraft carriers, some of the people that were the greatest leaders were some junior personnel that, that stepped up and that first led by example. And then also you had to depend on everybody to make good things happen. And so, I think about undaunted leaders. I really think of three key characteristics. One is they're clear about where they want to go, what the mission is, what the vision is. And as part of a team, they understand what the team's mission is and how their role is important and necessary, and have a very clear idea of their responsibilities. And everybody's in alignment. And then the second thing is that an undaunted leader, by definition, has to be trusted, has to have a high level of trustworthiness. And the team needs to have a culture that is a very high trust culture. That's where you get the speed and agility and innovation and, frankly, resilience. I mean, a high trust team can take a punch and come back stronger. A low trust team is brittle and it takes a punch. They often may never come back. And then finally, the third piece is you got to have a significant amount of personal energy. Time is important, and we all know that you have to schedule your time precisely in order to be able to, get the most important things done. But when you show up at those important moments, if you're tired, worn out, pissed off, nothing good happens, right? So it's not just about managing your time. It's also about managing your energy.
I love that. I love that idea of mission. Let me ask you a little bit about that before I go into kind of talking about energy a little bit more from my perspective. So when we think about mission, obviously you are, Blue Angel, fighter pilot, all this stuff. So mission from a military perspective has, of course, a huge impact. That's like a big word, right?
Right.
For us who are non-military, when you think of mission for us, like kind of normal people, I think of purpose, like what is the purpose of my life and all that kind of stuff. Like, can you expand on that a little bit just for us that are not military, that kind of, how can we apply that to our lives?
Well, I think equating mission and purpose are very close, and every company, well, most every company sits down and thinks about, okay, what are our goals? Where are we trying to get to? What's our vision? And so it's really very relatable. We just happen to use the word mission.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think in future episodes, we plan on kind of hitting that idea of purpose a lot more because purpose really involves so many different things with our values and what's important to us. And that's really what guides us in life. So, this big idea of like, what's my purpose is a huge question. And I don't know that there's one answer to it,
Yeah.
It's really, how do you want to show up and how do you want to be remembered? And,
Yes.
and it's not remembered necessarily when you're dead, but even remembered in how you interact with people, just like the question I asked earlier. Like when you think about people who have had the most impact on your life, that's how you're remembered, right?
Right.
And it could
Exactly.
be a short interaction with someone, or it could be someone you've known for, 30 years. And it goes to that second pillar that you were talking about too, with trust. A leader, especially, I know you have written a book. We can plug it right away on our first episode. Might as
Thank
well.
you. Thank
Hey,
you.
that's what we're here for, is high trust leadership. And so tell me a little bit about why you chose that title. I mean, obviously to put it in the title, you must have a pretty big reason why trust is so important, especially for leadership.
Every high performance team I've been on, that was the foundation to our success, was the fact that we got to a point where, and it takes effort and work and everything, but that was the key to our success was, and you hear people, it's almost a cliche when you talk to former military people and you ask them, so what'd you miss about the military? And they always say, the people.
Yeah.
And what they really mean is the being around and working and depending on people that you can absolutely trust, that they're going to show up and they're going to bring their A game and they're going to put the team first. That's what's really special.
Aside from family, I have never seen a bond in people I know in life that is stronger than people who have been through military, people who have been through those experiences like that. I
Right.
mean, it is a huge, I mean, when you're a Blue Angel pilot, remind us, how far apart are those planes from each other?
Yeah. Well, if the wingman could roll down the window in their cockpit, they could literally reach up and either touch my jet or the jet that was in front of them. I'm
Stop it.
talking a couple feet apart at
Wow.
300, 400, 500 miles an hour. But, You also see it, right now we're going into the playoffs and to the Super Bowl, right? And when you hear the championship teams in whatever sport it is, they talk about they may not say the word, but when they talk about the experience, they
Yeah.
talk about the relationships because trust is the air that all relationships breathe. And that's what everybody feels whenever you've been in a situation where you depend on somebody and they come through.
Ugh, I love that. I love that. And thank you for bringing it back to sport, which is sort of my area that I like to focus on. So I've been a high performance dietitian for many years, working with many different athletes. And so I love that, yeah, trust in your team of who's supporting you and who's giving you advice and who's telling you what to do. But let's also bring that back to kind of your third pillar, which is energy, and energy really physically, but also emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. So I'm kind of the physical energy girl who also, kind of brings that into the rest of our life. So I truly believe that we cannot be at our best, whether we're a leader, whether we're an everyday person, we cannot be at our best if we don't feel good. When you're sick and you're like, ugh, I can't, lift my head off this pillow. I can't speak. It's a chore to just go shower. It's hard to be our best, especially physically when we don't have energy, but that also brings it to, our emotional connections and our, mental clarity and focus and all that stuff. So when I think of energy from a physical dimension, I kind of have four different areas that I focus on with my clients. And of course, nutrition. I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist. So nutrition is going to be a big part, but not just what you eat, but when you eat. How are you spreading those calories throughout the day? What's going into that? How is that affecting your energy, your focus, all of that? Movement and exercise. When we are sitting all day long, we're sitting on the largest muscle of our body, which is our gluteus maximus. Our butt is the largest muscle in our body. And when you're sitting on it all day long, that is crushing the blood flow to the rest of your body. So you literally don't get the oxygen going to the places it needs to go, which is our brain when we're working and thinking and trying to be creative and all that good stuff. So that movement and exercise is a really big key when I'm working with my clients. And then we talk about recovery. So recovery, of course, is sleep. It's not just quantity of sleep, but it's the quality of sleep. And, I used to say that the supplement industry is $1 billion industry, but I swear the sleep industry is now $1 billion industry. It's insane. You can buy like $8,000 mattress covers, like all this stuff. And I'm not saying don't, because your sleep is so important. If that's what you need to get a good night's sleep, it is worth every penny. And so working on, some of the barriers to sleep, how can I get that good night of sleep? How can I get the quality of sleep that I need? But then also recovery. And I know you're big on recovery as well, that it's not just, okay, getting my sleep, but when's the last time you did take a vacation? When's the last time you played hooky and just took a day off for you? We now call them mental health days, and they're legit in companies that you could take a mental health day. And why not? We should be taking those mental health days, right? And so I really think that our body is business relevant. Our body is relevant, our physical body, our health, not just disease prevention, but the way we show up on a daily basis, our, how we eat, when we eat, what we eat, how we move, what kind of exercise we're doing, how strong are our muscles, and then making sure we get that recovery really impacts so much of everything that we're talking about in terms of Be Undaunted.
And I think one of the themes that we'll be talking about in the weeks ahead is about how this is all training. You're not born with this, and it's just a matter like anything else, whether you're building your physical muscle or your mental muscle or your emotional muscles. We need to. We'll be talking about how you go about building your energy capacity and then preserving it, not letting it leak or barriers and distractions and all that stuff in each of the four dimensions. That's going to be really fun to cover.
Yeah, absolutely. So talk to us a little bit about mindset. So when I'm working with clients, I know no one is going to change their behavior unless they have a strong why behind it. right? I was just talking to a client earlier today about, well, why do you want to lose this weight, improve your blood sugar, like all these different things, And so if you don't have that strong, compelling reason, it's not going to happen. And then that brings us to the mindset of, okay, now I see the light at the end of the tunnel, or the thing that I'm reaching for in terms of why I want to do this. But having the right mindset, I feel like, is so key.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, strategy is great, but without any energy, it's not going to go anywhere. Or, you know, you see values that aren't practiced and developed and show up in your behavior,
Hmm.
you might as well they're just posters on the wall.
Oh, and I think that's so important. So many people say one thing, this is really important to me and all that, but your actions are actually what are going to show whether that is true or not. So I love that. Values without energy become posters.
Yeah.
And posters are just stuck on a wall, and unless they come to life, they aren't going to make a change, right?
Yeah. I was just recently was a COO of an aviation company out here on the West Coast, ACI Jet. And we had our values, our 4 core values posted on the wall in the headquarters there. But one thing that we did that I thought was really neat was every month we would have an all hands meeting,
Mm.
30 minutes, where everybody in the company, nearly 400 people could tune in, and they would get a rapid fire coverage from the executive team on, what each of the executives saw as their challenges, what their priorities were, and so forth. And then they would end their comments by giving a shout out to somebody that was in their department or their business unit, and say why this person was exemplifying one of our core values. And what that did for us was it correlated the word with actual practical behavior, so that people would go, oh, so that's what you mean by integrity, or that's what you mean by service, or that's what you mean by safety, and so forth. And so that was how we bridged from being just posters on the wall to actually trying to affect behavior. Pretty cool.
And doing that helped so many different things. So yes, it showed values that your employees were also showing, but then by the fact that you guys were calling them out, also showed some of the values of your company, that we value you
That's
and
right.
we value, all of the contributions that you're giving, because I think that happens too little in the common workplace, where, it's so easy for all of us, even at home, for us, we complain. You ask someone, how was your vacation? They're like, oh, it was really good. And then they tell you about, the flight that was delayed and the this or the that. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's so easy for us to complain. It's more easy for us to find fault than it is to find, the positives sometimes. And so calling out, those positives instead of always focusing on, complaining in the workplace, especially, all of that breeds, whenever people are complaining all the time, it just grows legs and feeds on itself. And so, having more of that positive culture, I think is so important.
Absolutely. Well, it looks like our time is about up, man. It's gone way too fast. This has been really fun for our first one.
I can't believe it. I know. It's really fun. So in future episodes, what you guys are going to see is some more of the brilliance of George and Tara, of course. But we also plan to have some amazing guests, maybe some people that you've heard of, maybe some people that you haven't, but every single guest that we're going to have is going to be an incredible person who, of course, has wonderful things to share about maybe some things that they've overcome in their life, leadership, or whatever it is that they are going to share with us. So I'm excited for our conversations, you and mine, George, but I'm also excited for bringing in other people that I know in my life, that you know in your life. And I love that the two of us, maybe we should talk about that people are like, how did the two of you happen to come together for this, this podcast? Because George really focuses on this high trust leadership, is an amazing leader, obviously, with all of the things that you have in your experience. And I've been working with high performance athletes and executives for many, many years. That's why we came together, is because we're like, we come from these two different worlds, but yet what we talk about helps people to become better in every area of your life. And so that's why we just really have high respect and love for each other. So any chance we get to do something together, George and I are like, yes.
Well, and as you said, being undaunted, it's all about human performance, right? It's not about rank. It's not about whatever. It's about how you show up, especially when it could be easier not to. And that's what we need.
Yeah, exactly. Because we all have things that happen in our lives that knock us down a little bit, but it's how we get back up. It's that resilience. We're going to talk a lot about that too. How do we get back up and continue on in life, even when life gives us some of the hardest knocks there are out there?
This isn't a rehearsal, right? So we gotta bring our A game every day. We can't waste it.
What? I have to bring my A game? Are you serious? You didn't tell me that. All right. So until next time, my friends, be undaunted.
Thanks for joining us. See you next time.
Follow us for free on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you're listening right now. And you can join us to learn, grow, and lead together.
This is Be Undaunted.